brand new phase, the stakes rising, the urgency increasing now that both conventions are over. President Trump about to campaign in New Hampshire after his big RNC speech last night. The president laying out his agenda, defending his record, and offering up blistering attacks on Joe Biden. Take a look.
Joe Biden is not a savior of America's soul. If given the chance, he will be the destroyer of American greatness. They will make every city look like Democrat-run Portland, Oregon. No one will be safe in Biden's America. At the Democrat convention, you barely heard a word about their agenda. But that's not because they don't have one. It's because their agenda is the most extreme set of proposals ever put forward by a major party nominee. Joe Biden's agenda is made in China. My agenda is made in the USA. Joe Biden's plan is not a solution to the virus, but rather it's a surrender to the virus.
The president and Republicans reaching out to three groups of voters during the RNC: MAGA supporters, African Americans, and suburban swing voters. So, were they successful in selling the message? Greg, let's kick it off by saying, hey, the virtual experiment in conventions is over. Ratings were down all around, but the Biden campaign today bragging that their candidate's speech got more viewers than President Trump's speech. Why do you think that was?
Well, probably because there's less that you've seen of Joe Biden, so they had to check him out. You could see Trump every single day. It's the Trump show every day. But Joe, he's basically, he's like a mole. He's just living underground until he has to come up every now and then. I thought last night was amazing and how preferable non-politicians are to politicians in terms of, presenting ideas and being persuasive. Alice Johnson, don't just give her a pardon, give her a show. She is an absolute natural, and I guess she learned. I thought that she was impressive. Dana White, a tough cookie, incredibly forceful, and then you have Ann Dorn, who was a voice that was neglected by the media because her story didn't fit their narrative. Because the media believes certain lives matter more than other lives, and it was necessary to remind everyone that she lost her husband because when you excuse the mob, the mob grows and people die. But when you look at everybody, you look at Alice Johnson, Dana White, you look at Jack Brewer, you look at Burgess, Herschel Walker, Sister Bird. The idea of a Republican Party as a country club, that cliche is dead. It's over. That idea of a Republican Party no longer exists. It's now the party of law-abiding Americans who want to live free. That's all it is. It was a great message.
All right, so Jesse, I want to hear your thoughts because, when I was watching the speech, I thought it was very long. It was, I think more than an hour. It seemed slow at points. And even the attacks on Joe Biden from the president, and normally he's just so, he's got punch. That guy can really stir people up. I just thought they felt like reruns to me. So what was your view of the speech?
I'm very angry with the president. I told him all week he needs to keep it ending before 11, and he kept me up until 11:30. I'm a mess today, Juan. I can barely keep my eyes open, but I'm going to just give him a pass on it. I know it was a very special night. I would disagree with you strongly. I thought it was an effective speech, an effective week. They reignited the base while also extending a hand to other people. The framing of the fight against the coronavirus as a war, and America always wins wars, was very effective. He really laid out what he accomplished in the last 4 years, basically stuffed two terms into one, which is pretty incredible, and then cast out a vision for the future, talking about untangling ourselves from China and making us the manufacturing superpower, winning the race to 5G, putting a man on Mars, tax relief, war on crime. It was a very uplifting message for the second term. But I did think he defined Biden as someone who's been on the wrong side of history, as someone that's been on the wrong side of every trade deal, every foreign policy decision, as someone who is beholden to the far left and China. And he kind of had a rhetorical flip-flop with Joe's thing he said during the DNC is he's an ally of the light. He said Joe wants to keep you in the dark about what he wants to do because his radical proposals are so dangerous. And he's a member of a party that can't even keep the lights on in a place like California where you're seeing rolling blackouts. So, I mean, that's kind of like a management issue. And Donald Trump wins that very effectively. The end, the historical flourish that he brought together when he talked about the American pioneer spirit that forges a character by pushing forward into the frontier, defining us as rugged individuals with flair and style, but we're successful because we kind of work together as one, and kind of weaving the America First populist movement into that historical momentum, and then casting out a vision for the future. That's what great leaders do. They kind of rally you behind a patriotic momentum with vision. Joe Biden didn't even attempt to do that. So the president was very effective there.
All right, so Martha, one of the lines of questioning today about the president's speech is, did he make the case for what he would do if reelected in the next 4 years? This is coming from lots of people who say, oh, he never answered Sean Hannity, he can't answer the New York Times. Did he do it in the speech last night, Martha?
Well, to a certain extent, he tried to. In one of the end sections of the speech, he went through a number of things. He talked about creating 10 million jobs over the next 10 months. He talked about wanting to go to Mars. Putting a woman on Mars was one of the things that he mentioned at the end. So he wants to push forward the space program. He talked about religious liberty. He talked about protecting abortion rights. He talked about increasing the economy. So I think there were plenty of agenda items that were there. And I think that, you know, I don't think that the overall delivery was as strong as we have seen at certain times for the president. And I do wonder, as I mentioned last night, if it was a great strategy to put him out there every single day, because it doesn't lead to that sort of big moment when you've seen the president so many times all throughout the week. However, we do see a lot of the president in, you know, every 24-hour news cycle, as was pointed out. One of the things that I thought, when you talk about the groups that they want to inspire to bring the vote out, you've got the Make America Great vote, and then you've got the Black American vote, which obviously they are trying to get as well, and you've got the women's suburban vote. And I thought that in many ways, he tried to appeal to all of them, of course, at different points in the speech, because it was very long, so it hit on pretty much everybody. But in terms of the MAGA crowd, right, one of the things that I thought was a line that was so potent that I haven't heard discussed that much, and I'm kind of paraphrasing it a little bit, but he talked about Joe Biden sort of talking the talk with blue-collar workers, but not walking the walk. He said he has empathy for blue-collar workers, but he said then he sends your jobs to China and he sends your sons to war.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty powerful. You know, you have to remember that when you look at Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, the president won in a combination of 70,000 votes in those states. He knows he needs to win those states. He's behind in the polls in all of them right now. They say their polls look better, but those are the polls that everybody else can look at and see. So he's got to bring out more people that will resonate with that. And he's got to prevent Joe Biden from pulling those votes away from him. And I thought that was a pretty powerful line of attack.
That was interesting. I haven't heard much discussion of that. Katie, Greg was mentioning David Dorn's widow. Now, he is the policeman who was killed by looters in St. Louis. Today, his daughters came out and said they really didn't want the widow to speak there. They said David Dorn was not a Trump supporter and that they felt this politicized his death. What do you think?
I think the widow of a woman the woman who spoke, Ann Dorn, has every right to speak wherever she wants to about her husband, who was killed in cold blood after doing a friend a favor and trying to keep his business safe. You know, I'm not going to comment on the family members, but she was in the crowd last night at the White House on the South Lawn with her family, who happens to not share the same skin color as her, by the way, to listen to the president. And you don't have to be a Trump supporter to want safe communities and to want to stop people from losing their lives simply for defending the property that they have worked so hard over a lifetime to keep and to use to provide for their family. But I want to touch on another issue real quickly before we go. The speech that President Trump gave was long, but they were very strategic in addressing every single issue. So if you're a single issue voter, they went through basically every single topic you could imagine in that speech. President Trump attacked Joe Biden's record and then explained what his record is on the issue after 4 years in the White House and what he would do in the future on the issue. And I think one of the most effective speakers was Ivanka Trump, because she talked about how she's been in Washington. It's a tough place, and her father has forced her to look at her own convictions about the way that politics and policy affect real people. And President Trump was very effective in showing people he's trying to get to vote for him that he is still an outsider, not a corrupted Washington politician after being here for 4 years, and he's going to continue to keep at bay those temptations about what D.C. can do for people like Joe Biden, who, as Martha pointed out, said a whole lot of things to blue-collar workers, to union workers, and voted for the opposite when he was in Washington, D.C.
Thanks, Katie.